Do you know the feeling when you stand in front of a group of people and you're supposed to be the one actually running the show, and then suddenly when you stand there, there's a feeling of how do I start? What are the first things to say? How to begin to make sure that everybody understands that I'm the one who's going to lead them through the workshop, through the day, through multiple days even, depending on what you're doing. If you know the feeling of, like sweaty palms for a moment and heightened pulse, that's normal and that's healthy and you probably should have that. But you should also be very clear and understand what are you going to say next. Today I want to talk to you about how to start a design sprint session and what should be your first words to make sure that everybody understands that you're the guy or girl running the show for everybody in the room for the entirety of the sprint. So today's topic of design sprint facilitation secrets is how to start. I'm head of training at Neon Sprints, and I will be sharing with you our experiences on how to run the best possible design sprint from what we've learned based on the dozens of sprints that we run in the past. If you haven't run dozens and dozens of sprints in the past yourself, then you probably experience some anxiety before the thing starts yourself. That's something that I also experience even if I have done it many times before. It is a healthy thing to have. However, it is very important to know how to actually start then and create a particular level of engagement with the people and position yourself as a person of competence, trust, and a person who knows what they're doing. This is why we're going to talk today about Facilitator Intro, which is one of the most important things when you start a sprint. Most of the people really don't think much about this. It's more about, okay, I'm just gonna stand in front of people, I'm gonna tell them who I am, and then we're gonna start. You can do it in many different ways. And there are better ways, and maybe not necessarily worse, but definitely ways that will make your life a little bit more tricky and difficult in the first hours of the sprint if you don't position yourself the way that everybody follows you and understands that you're the leader. So, that's the topic, and we're gonna go through this step by step. It is not as complicated as it might sound right now, but there are a few points to consider and to keep in the back of your mind when you do it. And maybe even, if you're doing this for the first, second, or third time, prepare in advance without obviously standing there with a piece of paper in your hand saying, "Hi, I'm Tomek." We probably know your name. But everything else, like bullet points that you want to cover, that's something that would be helpful to have somewhere in the room from the very beginning, or at the very beginning, better said, so that you can have a look at it before you get up or before you stand in front of the people and start talking. So let's talk about what the most important elements are and what the secrets are, in addition to those, to get the best possible intro in a design sprint. I prepared a few things for you guys. See, Facilitator Intro, that's what we're going to talk about. Let's start with simple things, easy things. Do say who you are. You want to make sure that people know who they speak to, and that is also something that immediately establishes connection with the people in the room. Now, you would say, are you crazy? Why do I need to think about this? To be honest, I've experienced a number of sessions where people were so stressed that they stood in front of the group, started telling them about what's going to happen and what they actually are going to do with the group, and telling them maybe a little bit about themselves. But at the end of maybe even a 5-minute introduction, yes, sometimes people take 5 minutes. Everybody was looking at themselves and said, who is this guy? Because they kind of forgot to say their name. So always start with that. Depending on where you look, what you look at, and depending on who do you talk to, there are some people suggesting that it's a good thing to put your name at the end of an introduction, because that's the last thing that you're saying, and this is the thing that sticks the most with the people. Fine by me, you can do it like this, but that said, I've experienced it in the past that people kind of tend to forget this last bit at the end. So you decide, whatever you do, make sure that you state your name and establish connection with the people in the room. The next point, experience. And as it says here, you need to, and I love the word, emanate competence. What does that mean? Tell the people in the room why you are in front of them. They need to understand why it's you, particularly, specifically, especially you, standing in front of them and talking to them and opening the session and telling them that you're going to facilitate them. Stating what you've done before in terms of facilitating sprints, telling them where do you come from generally, what your background is. All of this is helping to build up a feeling of the guy or the girl standing in front of me right now knows what they're talking about. And that's really crucial. You would be surprised how many times people actually forget this bit. Like this specifically, but they do this. Hi, my name is Tomek, for instance. I'll be your facilitator sprint. What will I be? No. I will be your sprint facilitator for this week. Let's start. It's not bad, because you did say your name, or I did, and I said what I'm going to do there, but kind of a little bit is missing there. And that's easily something that you could do if you are a little bit tense or anxious because you're already thinking about the first thing that you want to talk about and the first exercise that you need to run with the people. So you cut your introduction short. Shouldn't do that. Take your time and tell them why you're the right person to run that sprint. How do you actually emanate competence? Tell the people how many sprints you've run before, how many workshops, design thinking workshops. Just think about all of this, count it all together and put that in focus, okay? Then the other thing that you should tell them is what qualifies you to facilitate a design sprint. So tell them a little bit about your background, where you're from, professionally obviously, what you did before, so that they have a feeling of, okay, there is a build-up that led to the fact that now you're here where you are. Ideally, you would do something like this. Hi, I'm Tomek, and I will be your facilitator for the week. For the past 15 years, I've been running workshops and trainings across different industries for different companies, and my focus was working with teams on innovation, developing products, and strengthening company culture in terms of change management and pushing things forward. I've collected a lot of experience across different types of projects, and all of them led me to believe that design sprints is the right thing to do for me, because all of them frustrated me with one thing. It always took forever to see the results. With a design sprint, we're going to have the results by the end of the week. The third step, the third thing, the third step to take is to do the following thing. Tell the people what are your tasks and what are you going to do with them specifically. So explain what the facilitator actually does within the framework of your design sprint or any other workshop that you're running with them. It is absolutely crucial for the people to understand what are you actually going to do with them. I'm not saying that you're supposed to now go through the structure of the sprint at this stage. You're still in the introduction part. So talk to them about things like you're going to lead them through both silent and group discussions. You're going to lead the exercises. You're going to synthesize the results from the exercises, keep them on track, show them the path that they're going into. The path is somewhere there, right? And you're going to make sure that at the end of every exercise, and with that at the end of the sprint, there is something that you can use for your next step, which means you are responsible for the procedure, the exercises, and getting things done. But you're not responsible for the content. That's what you need the team for. And that's worthwhile telling to the people at the beginning as well. So you can say something along the lines, okay, my job as a facilitator to get you step by step through the entire design sprint process and make sure that you get the best possible results from all the exercises and everything that we're going to develop and work on as we go through the week. Your job as the team is to provide content and give ideas in order to get the best possible outcome of every exercise. And now it's time to give them something that creates the feeling that it's not only going to be job and work and the professional stuff, but it's actually also going to be fun. So you need to create some emotion. How do you do that? Say something personal. And you need to say something personal to have an icebreaker, to create a different kind of emotion in the room and with the team. You might say that you already said quite a few personal things because, everything else that we talked about was also personal, but it was more of the business or the professional, the design sprinty part of the introduction. Now it is important to give them something that they smile at. They can smile at you or laugh with you or at you, whatever it is, but something that kind of breaks the tension if it's still there. If it's not, it's definitely not going to hurt you. If there is a tension in the room, this is the moment to work with it or to work through it to get a better sense of team feeling in the room. How do you do that? Pretty simple. Just make a comment about yourself, something that creates a feeling of that's an actual person standing in front of me. I tend to say where I'm from, so I'd say things like, as you might know, I'm actually from the most beautiful city in Germany, which is Hamburg. If anybody has a different opinion about this, let's talk about this over coffee in the next break. For instance, if it's too lame for you, come up with whatever you want and go with something that fits. The most important thing is you need to stay authentic. If people realize that you're phony and that you're trying to come up with something that's actually not really you, rather than breaking the tension, you will increase it because you're gonna get more anxious and more stressed out. Lastly, it is important from the very beginning to create the right context for everything that you do. So if you find that this is a lot of stuff and you get yourself lost somehow in your introduction and you start telling people your life story, which is not the point here, then make sure that somewhere towards the end of all of this, you start talking about sprint specifics and provide some context for what's going to happen. It is ideal when you say something about the actual sprint challenge that you're starting to work with, and it makes a lot of sense to say something along the lines of, this is going to be a very intense week. As you can imagine, it's called sprint for a reason. We're gonna be sprinting through some exercises and we're gonna do it in a really fast pace. My job is to make sure that you always feel secure about this, but it is possible that there will be moments where you will feel a little bit rushed and you will have the feeling that you would like to discuss something more. Believe me, my job is to make sure that we get from one point to another. So if I cut you off, it's not because I don't want to hear your points, it's because everything that we need at this particular point in time is already there and we can move on to the next step. All of those points that you see here on this flip chart, all of this is there to do one thing and one thing only. It's there to establish your personal facilitation style and build up the trust with the group from the get-go. How long do you think this famous first impression takes? Well, it's actually seconds. In a sprint situation or when you're introducing a workshop, you might actually have a little bit longer. But basically, if you think about creating a first impression in a design sprint environment as a facilitator, this is it. This is going to be what creates a picture, a mental picture of who you are, how you're going to work with the group, and what you can do for everybody in the room. When you do the introduction round, I tend to do it the following way. I just say hi, who I am, and then I'm asking everyone in the room to introduce themselves. There are different ways of doing that. That's a separate topic. And then at the very end, when everybody else has introduced themselves, I'm introducing myself. This way, it provides a good connection to directly going into the sprint afterwards. Now, if you think about if I cover all of this, it's gonna take me half an hour to do it. Well, think again. Most of those things that you see here, it's actually a matter of seconds. You can talk about this for 5 minutes or longer, but typically it's something that should take you 2 to 3 minutes tops. However, if you have the feeling that the group needs some reassurance at the very beginning, because you have the feeling already after their introduction round that they are a little bit shaky with everything, then I would suggest that you spend a little bit more time talking about this and specifically about the sprint context in order to ease them into the process. If you like this video, then subscribe to our YouTube Neon Sprints channel, where we post regular design sprint facilitation secrets like the one you just saw. And don't forget to check out our Product Masterminds group on Facebook. See you next time.